And you're saying that everything contained in these statements are true and accurate?
Yes.
Also, before I turned on the recorder, I gave you a chance because I wanted to explain what happens if... Day right now is July 16, 2008. The time right now is 04:11 hours. I'm Detective Mellish with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Present here at 4937 Hope Spring Drive. I reference Orange County case number 08-069208. I am with Casey Anthony, is that correct?
Yes.
And Casey, would you please state your birthday for me?
03/19/1986.
Okay. Casey, you understand this is being recorded?
Yes.
You have any objection to that?
No.
All right. Casey, I got called here by Sergeant Reggie Hosey with the Orange County Sheriff's Office in reference to a missing child. We sat here and talked for a short moment before we went on tape because I wanted to make sure that your sworn statement, which I'm looking at, was accurate. Looking at 4 pages of a sworn statement on the bottom appears to be your signature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that everything contained in these statements are true and accurate?
Yes.
Also, before I turned on the recorder, I gave you a chance because I wanted to explain what happens if you make a false report or if there's something about this incident that you're not telling us the truth of. And I wanted to make sure I made it perfectly clear that, you know, if you want to go ahead and rescind this statement, and if you want to tell me a different story about what happened, if you're trying to fabricate a story to kind of make something look a little bit better, now is your time to tell me. Are you telling me that this is the story you want to stick with?
It's the truth. It's the story I'm going to stick with. Yes.
Okay. In your own words, let's go back. Your daughter's name is Kaylee, Caylee.
Yes.
Marie Anthony. She was born August 9th.
2005.
Okay. And according to your statement back on August 9th, back on June 9th, 2008, you took Casey to a babysitter's house.
Yes.
And who was this babysitter?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Do you know how to spell the first name?
Zenaida.
And where was Zenaida's? Where did you drop your child off?
The Sawgrass Apartments on Conway in Michigan.
Do you remember the address?
I don't remember the address.
Do you remember an apartment number?
210.
Okay.
It's on the 2nd floor.
If you were to pull into the Sawgrass Apartments, would the building be the one closest to the road, furthest back, halfway?
As soon as you go straight, you go over one speed bump, and it's the first one on the right-hand side.
Okay, is there a pool next to it, or is there anything about the apartment that stands out?
There's a welcome sign. It's, I guess there's a little shed close to the building, maybe about 10 yards away.
Okay. How long had you known Zenaida?
Almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years Christmas this year.
And where did you meet her? Who did you meet her through?
A mutual friend. His name is Jeffrey Michael Hopkins. I met him at Nickelodeon at Universal, and I met her through him. She was his son's nanny at the time.
Does Jeffrey still work at Universal?
No, he does not.
How long has it been since he left?
About 9-10 months, give or take.
He moved back to Jacksonville?
He moved up to North Carolina for a short time and moved down to Jacksonville within the last 3 months.
When was the last time you spoke with him?
About a week and a half ago.
Okay. Do you know a telephone number for him?
I can find a number for him. I don't know a number offhand. No, I do not.
You mentioned something before we went on tape about your cell phones.
Yes. I have 2 phones. I just received a new phone through work, through Universal. The phone won't keep charged, so I use my old phone that I actually had gotten, again, through Universal for work.
Okay. Did you lose a phone?
Yes.
Was it your personal phone?
It was my personal phone, but I also use it for business.
Okay. What's the number for the phone that you lost?
407-619-9286. It's the same
keep
number.
That same number?
Yes, it's
You
still
just
the
lost
same
the
number.
phone.
I just lost the phone.
And in that phone, you're saying was the SIM card, and the SIM card had the contact
Actually,
information?
the SIM card is in my Nokia phone, but I know there's numbers saved to the cell phone itself. So if we get the actual phone, I know I have one other number for Zenaida, and probably a number for Jeff besides work numbers, and...
But they're not in your SIM card?
They're not saved on the SIM card. They're saved on the phone. I've been trying to figure out on that new phone how to save numbers from the phone to the SIM card and switch them back and forth. So that way I have everything all in one piece.
Okay, so the phone where you had the number saved was lost?
Yes. I filed an incident report.
But how did you end up keeping the SIM card?
I had taken it out. I know I left the phone on my desk at work after I'd switched the SIM card back to my old phone, because this was the phone that actually would keep charge. And I wanted to be able to have a working phone instead of having a phone that would only stay charged for about a half hour and then it would die and I can't make any more calls. It's, for me, not practical.
After you switched the SIM card is when the phone went?
I left it on my desk, and I hadn't been at work for at least 3 or 4 days.
And you said you made the report to Universal? Or?
Yes, with security.
When
9 days ago.
9 days ago?
Yes.
Okay. So you met Zenaida through Jeffrey Hopkins.
I did.
And his son Zach Hopkins, I guess. Zenaida used to watch over Zach?
Yes.
And you say you've known Zenaida for about 4 years?
Almost 4 years,
So
yes.
you knew her before you had your child?
Well, I met her just before. I was actually pregnant at the time. So.
And when did she start watching over your child?
It's been within the last 1.5 to 2 years that she started watching Kaylee. I had another friend watch Kaylee that I've known since middle school. When she went back to school, I was looking for a new nanny. Jeff offered to have Zenaida watch both kids. She agreed, and it kind of went from there.
Before Zenaida started watching over your child, who was the nanny?
Her name was Lauren Gibbs, Gibbs.
And when did Lauren stop watching your child?
Maybe April of 2006.
Okay. And right in April 2006, roughly, is when Zenaida started watching
Yes.
over? How would you normally drop off, or how would you normally do the exchange with your child and Zenaida? Would you drop the child off? Would she meet you somewhere?
I would usually drop her off. For a few months, we would go over to Jeff's house. He lived over in Avalon Park. That was almost a couple years ago.
And you would go to Jeff's house, why?
To drop off Kaylee. That's where Zenaida would go to watch both of the kids.
Okay.
It was in a nice centralized area. He had a decent sized house. It was good room for the two of them. Then I started bringing Kaylee over to Zenaida's apartment.
How long were you going to Zenaida's apartment? When did you start taking Kaylee?
I guess maybe the end of 2006, beginning of 2007.
So since the end of 2006, beginning of 2007, you started taking Kaylee to Zenaida's house on Sawgrass.
She had an apartment on, I guess it's considered Glenwood, but it's off of Bumby and Robinson, close to downtown. She lived there for quite a few months and moved over to Sawgrass just recently this year.
The house on Bumby, do you remember the address or remember where it's at?
I know it's off of Glenwood. I don't remember the apartment number offhand. No, I do not.
And how long would you say you dropped the child off there, from the end of 06, beginning of 07 to...
Maybe about 6-7 months, so maybe the middle of 2007.
So she moved into Sawgrass about the middle of 07?
She's been at that apartment in Sawgrass for about the last 3 or 4 months. She lived with her mom for a little bit.
Where does her mom live?
She lived off of Michigan.
Do you know where the house is?
It's not a very well marked neighborhood. It crosses just over Conway. It's one of the big stretches of neighborhoods.
Had you dropped the child off there before?
Yes.
If you had to find the place, would you be able to find it?
Most likely, yes. I think I'd remember the house.
Okay, so she was living off of Glenwood, then moved into her mom's house somewhere off of Michigan, and then moved into Sawgrass. So Sawgrass 3 or 4 months ago, off of Glenwood until mid-07, then mom's house.
Her mom wasn't living there at the time. Her mom had gotten another place with her sister, but she was staying over at the house and moved in with the 2 girls that are referenced in the pages.
She was living with these 2 girls at Sawgrass?
Yes.
Okay. Go back to your statement. You dropped off Kaylee on June 9th, and walk me through. You dropped her off to go to work? Okay. Get off of work and go from there.
I got off of work, left Universal, driving back to pick up Kaylee like a normal day. and I show up to the apartment, knock on the door, nobody answers. So I call Zenaida's cell phone, and it's out of service. It says that the phone is no longer in service. Excuse me. So I sit down on the steps and wait for a little bit to see if maybe it was just a fluke, if something happened. And time passed. I didn't hear from anyone. No one showed up to the house. So I went over to J. Blanchard Park and checked a couple other places where maybe possibly they would have gone. A couple stores, just regular places that I know Zenaida shops at, and she's taken Kaylee before. And after about 7 o'clock, when I still hadn't heard anything, I was getting pretty upset, pretty frantic, and I went to a neutral place. I didn't really want to come home. I wasn't sure what I'd say about not knowing where Kaylee was. Still hoping that I would get a call or, find out that Kaylee was coming back so then I could go get her. And I ended up going to my boyfriend Anthony's house, who lives in Sutton Place.
Did you talk to Anthony about what happened with Kaylee?
No, I did not.
Had Anthony ever seen Kaylee before?
Yes, he had.
Had you talked to anyone about Kaylee, about your incident with Kaylee? Or the fact that she's missing?
A couple people, a couple mutual friends.
Who did you talk to about it?
I talked to Jeffrey Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
I also attempted to contact Zenaida's mother and never received a call back from her.
Do you know Zenaida's mother's name?
Wow. Man. I think it's Gloria.
Do you know a telephone number for Zenaida's mom?
I do not know.
Do you have any of these numbers programmed into your SIM card that you kept into your other phone?
No, I do not.
How long did you have this old phone?
I've had the Nokia for almost a full year.
Okay. So after a full year of dealing with Zenaida and having her babysit, and you don't
Switching
remember...
numbers back and forth. Zenaida's number has changed a couple different times. She switched services between having Sprint and having AT&T or Singular.
What about Jeffrey? You've known him for at least 4 years.
His number's changed a couple different times from when he moved from Orlando up to North Carolina and back down to Jacksonville. I know I do have a current number for him.
How would you get that number?
If we can find that other phone, or I might have it online, I may be able to access it off the internet.
Okay. Who else did you talk to about this besides Jeffrey? You said you tried to call Zenaida's mom.
Mm-hmm.
You talked to Jeffrey. Who else did you talk about?
I talked to Juliette Lewis. She's one of my coworkers at Universal.
She works... You still work at Universal?
Yes.
What do you do at Universal?
I'm an event coordinator.
Okay. What is Juliet? What position is she? Where does she work?
She's also an event coordinator. We work in the same department.
You have a number for Juliet?
Ooh, offhand, I can't think of one.
Is she in your SIM card?
No, she's not. Some of the more recent numbers, her number just changed because she just moved back up north. She, within the last 2 months, has finished moving up to New York. She's subleasing her apartment.
So Juliet doesn't work at Universal anymore?
No, she does not.
When did she leave Universal?
About 2 months ago.
Who else did you talk to about it?
It's been within that small group. I've tried to find out just information from people, going out to different places like Fusion Ultra Lounge and a couple bars that I know Zenaida had gone to downtown before to see if, just kind of random talk, if anybody had heard about my nanny or talked to her lately.
Did you tell anyone specifically that Zenaida took your child?
No. The only 2 people that I specifically told were Jeff and Juliet.
And you don't have a number for Juliet?
Not offhand, no. I do not.
It's not on your phone? It might be online?
It's definitely online. I know it's on one of our old worksheets. Her old number, which could still be active. I'm not sure if it is, but I know she does have a new number, which I just programmed into that other phone.
When was the last time you talked to Juliet?
About 3 weeks ago, shortly after this happened.
So you talked to her after she left?
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason, I asked you this before and I'll ask you just for the record, what's the reason you didn't call the police before? Since right now we're here because your grandparents, or your parents, asked you about the child and they were concerned, didn't get an answer as to where the child was, they called the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you call prior to today?
I think part of me was naive enough to think that I could handle this myself, which obviously I couldn't. And I was scared that something would happen to her if I did notify the authorities or got the media involved or my parents, which I know would have done the same thing. Just fear of the unknown, fear of the potential of Kaylee getting hurt, of not seeing my daughter again.
I asked you this at the onset and I asked you before we went on tape, and I'll ask you again just to make sure we're clear. Is there anything about this story that you're telling me that is untrue? Or is there anything that you want to change or divert from what you've already told me?
No, sir.
Did you cause any injury to your child, Kaylee?
No, sir.
Did you hurt Kaylee or leave her somewhere and you're
No.
worried that if we find that out that people are going to look at you the wrong way?
No, sir.
And you're telling me that Zenaida took your child without your permission and hasn't returned her?
The last person that I've seen with my daughter, yes.
Where did Zenaida, does she have another job besides watching children?
She has a seasonal ID for Universal. However, the only job that I know that she's had for the last few years, she's been a nanny.
So seasonal employee at Universal?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time she worked at Universal, do you know?
I have no idea.
Does Kaylee take any medications? Does she suffer from any conditions, any mental conditions that
No.
we need to know of?
Not at all.
It was brought up before about taking some money from some people, and I want to make sure I get it on tape. Do you have any problems with drugs or narcotics, either prescription narcotics or drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, meth, anything like that?
Nothing like that.
Have you ever been committed for thoughts of suicide? Have you ever been on lakeside, anything like that?
No.
Is there any underlying cause to why Zenaida would have taken your child?
No. Nothing that...
Did she ever make any statements to you about...
Only how much she loves Kaylee and how great of a kid she is.
And have you talked, and when you talked to Jeffrey afterwards, I'm assuming that Jeffrey's child is still with him?
His child is still with him.
Okay. You said Zenaida had family up in New England, up in New York or
Yes,
something?
she has family down south. Her mother and her sister. Her brother's in New York. She's originally from New York.
And where's down south?
Miami area.
Where's she originally from?
New York.
She born and raised in New York? She have family outside of the country? Or?
I don't know. As far as I know, she pretty much grew up there, moved down here, went to the University of Florida.
Is she Puerto Rican? Is she Dominican? Is she white?
She's mixed. She's black and Puerto Rican.
And you don't know what her birthday is, or you don't know what her birthday is?
It's in September. That's all I can remember at the moment.
If, when we finish this, would you be willing to drive with me to show me where her mom lives and the apartment that you used to drop her off at?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you about, Kaylee or Zenaida, or just this incident in particular that you feel is important that you wanted to tell me about before I turn this off?
I mean, Kaylee has very distinctive features, even if her hair was cut or changed. She has dark hazel eyes, they're brown and green. She has a birthmark on her left shoulder.
What kind of birthmark?
It's just like a small line. It almost looks like a small little beauty mark.
Anything else?
I just want my daughter back.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand for me?
Yes.
Do you swear and affirm everything you just told me is the truth?
Yes.